Welcome back to a brand new episode of Real Talk About Feminism podcast.
We are so excited that you guys are here another week with us. We hope you enjoyed last week's episode, our little Guys Ask Girls lifestyle episode. We had a blast recording it.
Haley had some important self-realizations.
I did, yeah. Talked to my therapist about it and everything. So
I think overall, a word to describe the episode was insightful.
Very insightful. Yeah, if you guys haven't listened, then go listen. But if you have, then definitely share it with one of your male friends, because I actually feel like we gave some good advice.
I think we did.
So yeah, go share it with a friend if you haven't.
Yes, we hope you guys are having a great week. Again, thank you so much for joining us with a new episode. We really appreciate it. Thank you for all those listeners who listen every single week and have been with us since pretty much the beginning.
Yeah, because we actually do recognize. We really do. Like our day ones, all of the people, like if you send us a message about an episode, then we really appreciate it. And we just love connecting. Like when we see people responding on Instagram to our polls and our little question boxes, like it really does mean a lot. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, should we just get into it? I don't really have any updates, really. We're still moving in a week.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess let's get into our obsessions of the week.
You go.
My obsession of the week is Purple Hearts on Netflix.
Which I still haven't seen.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me just say, I would like it to go on record that I watched Purple Hearts the day it came out. Before it was all hype on TikTok, before it was trendy, like I watched it before it was trending, and I loved it.
I just haven't been watching movies or TV really, but it's on my list, I promise.
I guess that's kind of part of my obsession. Like I'm obsessed with movies. Some people might think I'm crazy for this, but I love starting a movie and finishing it spread out throughout different days. I love it.
Okay.
I love it for some reason, because I feel like it gives me something to look forward to. Like, let me get through my workday because I know I get to finish Purple Hearts tonight.
No, I totally get that, actually. When you say it that way, it makes sense.
Yeah. So that's my obsession.
Okay. My obsession is therapy.
Okay, love
because I've actually learned quite a bit in recent sessions about myself and the importance of letting yourself feel your emotions. And so I feel like I've just been really emotional lately, but that's okay. And so it's just something that I'm learning about myself.
That is okay. And I know obviously growing up with you were never the most emotional person, crying, that sort of thing.
Because I mean, to my core, I usually just bottle everything in.
Yeah, but I think that's great. I love that for you. That's a good obsession, honestly.
Yeah, no, it really is. Last therapy session, I was it was Monday, and I was I have therapy tonight, and then I was dang it, I have to wait another day. So I'm looking forward to it each week, which I think is a good thing.
That is a good thing, especially when you have a good relationship with your therapist and everything like that. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's get into the episode. Today we are talking about sex ed for children.
Yes, I'm going to read the feminist highlight first.
Yes. I knew that in my head that you were going to do that first.
Yep, you're going to hear a lot from me today, so I hope you like the sound of my voice.
If you don't, then get used to it. Just kidding.
It's not going away. Okay, today's feminist highlight is Sandra Douglas Morgan. On July 7th, she became the NFL's first Black woman president. She is now the president of the Las Vegas Raiders.
Ooh.
And she's also an attorney. And a fun fact, she was the first Black city attorney in the state of Nevada when she worked with the city of North Las Vegas.
So all of a sudden I'm a Raiders fan? Diehard?
Literally. When are we going to a game? Let's fly.
Yeah,
let's go.
Where's our jerseys? Where's our merch? We're doing it. Where are the Raiders?
Oakland, right? Oakland Raiders?
That doesn't sound right.
It does sound right to me.
Really?
But now I'm questioning. I have no idea.
Okay.
Look it up.
Honestly, that's really cool. Good for her. Especially in football, that's a very obviously male-dominated sport.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Las Vegas Raiders. Oh, yeah, I think they changed.
Vegas.
Wait. Okay. Anyway.
Black
it used
and
to be
white.
Oakland Raiders. I know that for a fact.
I don't think that's correct.
No, I know that for a fact.
Okay, somebody fact check us.
Did it used to be Oakland Raiders? Yes, the Oakland Raiders were a professional American football team that played in Oakland from its founding in 1960 to 1981, and again from 1995 to 2019 before relocating to the Las Vegas metro area.
Good job, honestly.
Oh, between 1982 and 1994, they played in Los Angeles as the LA Raiders.
Yeah, I
Just
thought it
kidding.
was LA, but now it's LA Rams.
I don't really know. Okay, I don't
Okay,
know.
I don't get it, but I'm really proud of you for that one. That was good.
Thanks.
Yeah, not to take away from our feminist highlight, but I think that's amazing, especially in a male-dominated sport, and being a woman of color, like, good for her.
Yep. Good for Sandra. Okay, that sounded really sarcastic.
But it wasn't.
Okay.
No.
All right. So, our topic for today, this is something I'm actually really interested in talking about with you because we've had like, I don't know, like if we've like seen a video or something, we're like, hey, what do you think about this? But like, we've
Mhm.
never really talked in depth about it.
Yeah.
So, the way I got this idea was I saw a TikTok and I'll put her username in the show notes because I was going through her page and she has quite a bit of like interesting videos that are pretty thought provoking.
Mhm.
So her username is Ali underscore 202 underscore. And she was talking about in this TikTok how she was assaulted when she was about 8. And then she was also assaulted multiple times after that, like through her young adult life.
Mhm.
And the reason she is passionate about sex ed for kids is because she never had that when she was growing up. And
Mhm.
so she was describing that this happened to her, this very traumatic thing happened to her, and she didn't have the vocabulary to be able to ask for help and explain what happened,
Yeah.
right? Which I feel like is actually a very common thing that we hear about.
Yeah.
So that's the premise of why I wanted to talk about this for this episode because I saw it and I was like, that is really interesting.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, like it happened again and again. And she was young and she didn't really know how to ask for help. She didn't really know how to verbalize, like, this happened to me and I'm not okay and I need
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, I think, like, for us, we got the talk when we were, like, uh, we were young.
Okay, so I think like looking back, I think I was like 7 when I had like the puberty talk with mom.
Yeah.
And then we had the sex talk when I was 8.
I had the sex talk and the puberty talk, like, all in one.
Oh, I had the puberty talk earlier because okay, I like started hitting puberty really early.
Mm.
So like I'm glad mom sat me down and talked with me about it because I would have been confused.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I had that earlier than the sex talk.
No, I'm pretty sure I was 8 when I had it all combined. Um, and I actually think that was really healthy because the way that mom and dad approached it, like, I remember there was a book, like a cartoon book,
Mhm.
like, just
It's
to, like,
burned into my
simplify
brain.
things. Yeah, like, and that was good. But also, like, some people might say that's too young, but I don't think so because
I
I
don't
think it was
either.
healthy. Like, they stressed the importance of, and I think at the time, like, putting it together now, like, I do think they stressed the importance of consent. Like, they talked about, like, how it's something between, like, two people who love each other and, like, it's something that they should both enjoy without,
Mhm.
like, getting too graphic. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right. There's a fine line, and, like, we'll get into that later for
Yeah.
sure. Um, but I like how you touched on consent because the main thing this girl was I'm sorry, I don't know her name. I didn't
That's
take
fine.
note of it. The main thing that she was talking about in the video was when people think sex ed for kids, they think like, "Why are we talking about sex with, like, young kids?"
Yeah.
That's not really what it is. The whole point is about consent.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously, you have to explain
Mhm.
the basics for them to be able to understand, like, if this were to happen to you, this is what it is.
Yeah.
But the main thing is consent. And so she was drilling that down in the video. Like, it's not so, okay. An analogy she gave is like when people think sex ed for kids, it's like, let's teach math to kids, specifically, like, let's just teach calculus to kindergartners. And it's like,
Mm.
that's not the way it is. Like,
Yeah.
let's teach addition to kindergartners.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of it.
Yeah, it's like teaching, you have to build on the concept. So let them know the basics, like what they need to know so that they know if something does happen to them that's not safe, that's not okay, and that's not right.
Right.
But you're not just full on like going from 0 to 100 all of a sudden teaching
Right,
calculus. Like, I love
exactly.
that.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good analogy. And it's not just sex, it's natural development, it's puberty,
Mhm.
it's certain things about our bodies,
Mhm.
consent. Again, like,
Yeah.
it's not just about sex, but, like, when kids have more knowledge about their bodies, the world, sex in general, like it's gonna make them feel like they can stand up for themselves if they needed to, or they could go to a trusted adult like, "Hey, I'm noticing this about my body. Is this normal? Can I ask you about it?" You
Yeah.
know? So I think that's a really important thing to differentiate between like people's extreme opinions about like we cannot have sex education in schools, especially for young kids because of this, this, and this.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's extremely helpful for kids to be able to be taught these important things that they're only going to get more confused about if they don't
Mhm.
learn about, right? Like they're going to
Right.
hear stuff in school, they're going to hear stuff on
On
social
yeah, social
media. Like,
media. Mhm.
yeah, so like you mentioned, you didn't feel like we got the talk too young. I don't either. And I feel
Yeah.
like when we have kids, like the internet's already crazy
Mhm.
and it's just going to get crazier.
Yeah.
And so, like, I personally would rather have my kids hear it from me
Yeah.
than somebody rando at school, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and you might get into this a little bit more, but I think um the most important thing that the girl on the TikTok was trying to teach is like just letting people, like you said, like letting kids know the vocabulary to understand like what is okay and what's not okay
Mhm.
if something happens to them. And I think going along with the overall
Mhm.
conversation of consent, it's important. Like you can teach consent without
Bringing
having a
sex
sex
into it
talk.
at
Like you
all.
can say
Yeah,
like you can say like if you don't feel comfortable with someone hugging you, let them know, "I don't wanna be hugged right now," you know? Or
exactly.
like, "I don't want to do this right now." Like, just like I think hugging is, like, a really important one because a lot of times it's like, "Oh, they're your family, like, give them a
Give
hug.
them a
That's
hug.
your aunt,
Yeah.
that's your uncle." But you might not be like, if something happened to you or in general, you might just not feel comfortable with that. So I
Mhm.
think teach consent without using sex if like, starting from a very young age, like, from when they
Right.
can are literally developing.
Right.
Teach consent and then lead that into, you know, how you can make the choice whether or not you want to hug your aunt or uncle if they come and visit. That is important in these other ways too.
Right, I like how you brought that up because it's like laying a foundation.
Yeah.
So you're not going from 0 to 100.
Mhm.
And there's this other account on TikTok, she's a mom, and she makes really great videos about this because she shows there are so many ways you can teach consent
Mhm.
through, like, games that are age appropriate or, like,
Yeah.
even, like, household chores, like, basic things that you can use to teach consent to kids that's not, like, involving sex at all. And I also, in the TikTok, that girl mentioned like the basic vocabulary.
Mhm.
So I think that is really important because we should be teaching kids the proper anatomical terms for things.
Yeah.
Don't you think? Like she said that not knowing that is kind of what made it difficult for her to verbalize, like, this happened to me
Yeah.
in this area?
Yeah.
And so when kids understand, like, that's a vagina, that's a penis, like it's easier for them to be able to connect the dots with like the lessons they're learning about consent
Yeah.
and then like their natural growth and development and then sex in general.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm just thinking about the terms that we used as kids.
Yeah,
Um,
this is nothing about like
yeah,
mom and
this is this is no critique to our parents because I think like we already said this. I think they did a really good job
yeah.
teaching us this. But when we were growing up, we used he and she, which like
It's
it's
like
funny.
worse than the actual name.
Yeah, like it's like way more awkward. But like now thinking about it,
Right.
but I actually do agree with you because just teaching the proper anatomical terms, like it's just a body part, and I think
Right.
like I think that also helps decrease shame if something did happen to a child,
Mhm.
and like there's already shame kind of associated with like not saying the proper anatomical term.
Mhm.
And so by just like flat out saying like this is a vagina, this is a penis, like and teaching it that way, you're decreasing the shame and the stigma around using the actual terms.
Yeah, that's a really good point because this is also like an interesting conversation about like the sexualization of like
Mhm.
body parts, especially like in America. Cuz
Mhm.
like when you're a kid, like you don't think about that really. Like
Yeah.
you are exposed to that as you're growing up.
Yeah.
And so like it's really not weird to use the
Yeah.
actual terms. I was doing a little bit of research about this topic and I came across Planned Parenthood. who, of course, like, they have resources for
They have
everything, and
resources
so, of
for
course, I
everything.
clicked on it.
That's why they
Um,
shouldn't get defunded.
Seriously. But they have a lot of helpful resources for educators, for parents, for kids themselves, for teens, like, a lot of different articles and research to, like, back up their findings,
Mhm.
and I wanted to share one of them because they referenced some studies that were done. The studies were focused more on just pregnancy prevention and STI prevention, because, like, I feel like with sex ed, that's, like, always the main goal.
Yeah.
It's always just about pregnancy and STIs, which is needed, hands down.
Yeah.
Um, but the articles showed that sex education early on often leads to appreciation of sexual diversity, dating and intimate partner violence prevention, development of healthy relationships, prevention of child sex abuse, improved social and emotional learning, and increased media literacy, in addition to decreasing rates of unintended pregnancies and STIs. So it just listed like a ton of other reasons why it's so important for
Mhm.
kids to learn about these things because especially with the internet and our technological age, like kids are exposed to so much when
Mhm.
they're young. Like some of the things that our younger siblings have been exposed to that I'm like, I never even was thinking about that when I was your age
Yeah.
because we just didn't have access to it.
Yeah.
But everything's so like in your face nowadays. And
Mhm.
so that just kind of brings me back to like I I think it's
Mhm.
important that like sex education also starts in the home too because for me, like, I want my future kids to, like, not have questions or confusion about anything.
Yeah, and like you said, it really is like so in your face. Like the other day, I'm literally scrolling on TikTok and there was like it's like a TikTok dance and then I scroll and it's like these are the best ways to make a woman orgasm. And it's like it's you just scroll past it. Like it's so
Right,
normal, it's so in your face.
right,
And so you're right, like they're going to be exposed to it either way and the best way to prevent anything is by education. And
right.
if you can come to your kid as like a trusted adult and just have an honest conversation and build that platform from when they're very young, then it's really going to serve them.
Right, and by you we're, like, speaking as if we're
Yeah,
parents.
we're like when we
Here's some
raised our
parental
children.
advice. I'm not meaning to come out that way at all. But, like, I do like, I'm taking example from, like, mom and dad because
Yeah.
they did do a really great job of this. Like, when
Yeah.
you go to your kid and you're like, "Hey, like, let's have a discussion about this. This is really important."
Mhm.
Your kid is gonna be more likely to trust you
Yeah.
with hard discussions.
Yeah.
And if heaven forbid like something were to happen to them, like hopefully they would be comfortable enough to come to you and talk with
Mhm.
you about it. So I think that's another aspect of it like starting it in the home is like you do establish that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of makes me think of like my situation. I was very comfortable telling mom and dad. Obviously, I didn't tell them details about my assault, but I was comfortable like when I was trying to figure out if I should report it.
Mhm.
I was comfortable telling them because I knew that they like had built that platform of trust with me from a young age and I knew that they were going to do nothing but support me. Whereas like when I looked at my community being in like a Christian community going to a school where like honestly like sex is bad until you're
Mhm.
married, that I was like, okay, there's like stigma around it, there's shame, and people might judge me and think that like, oh, well, I put myself in that situation. And so like I was thinking in the community that I'm in, I'm going to get judged. So I'm scared to report, but I went to my parents and they're the ones that encouraged me to report it because I knew they weren't going to judge me. And I really feel like it's because they built this platform or foundation from a
Mhm.
young age and just having an open dialogue. And I knew, I mean, I was 18, so I was an adult, but like I knew, like, yeah, this isn't okay. And they've always told us if something happens to you guys, it is not your fault. Like,
Right.
I remember that they've told us that multiple times.
Right.
And so I knew if something ever happens to me, it's not my fault and I'm going to go to them because they're going to support me. And that's what happened because I think they did that from a young age.
Yeah, that's a really great example. Like they established that early on.
Mhm.
You still felt comfortable even as an adult.
Yeah.
When, like, a lot of people are like, "No, I don't need my parents anymore." You know, it's
Yeah.
like, you still went to them and, like, they handled it really well and were
Yeah.
supportive and great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do, like, really appreciate being taught that as a young girl,
Mhm.
and, it's also something that I realize like, you don't realize it when you're younger that, like, "Oh, that was actually, like, a really great thing that mom and dad did for me," you know?
Yeah.
But, like, recent I guess kinda recently, but, like, when I was with my ex-husband, like, we had conversations about this, and like he was never taught anything about
Mhm.
sex in his house like growing up.
Mhm.
And so like everything he learned like was like from friends or the internet and stuff, which
Yeah.
like I was like, goodness, like I do not want my kids to go through that.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, I guess that's why I'm just like so passionate about kids having access to this kind of education
Yeah, from trusted
from
adults.
trusted
And,
adults.
I'm not saying that this was your ex-husband's situation at all, but, like, um, there's, like, such a high number of young children being exposed to pornography
Mhm.
because maybe they hear their friend say something
Like
and they
they're
look
just
it up.
curious.
Yeah, and they look it up and then they see this pornographic video, and we know that pornography is not real, it's fake, it shows, like, a lot of domestic violence against women specifically, and there's just so many issues there, so then when they're seeking out these sources, they're thinking, "Okay, so it's normal to be this aggressive towards women," and not just, like, in a sexual manner, but, like, that
In
influences
general.
you in general. So there's
Mhm.
just, like, it spirals when you're not talking about it in the home in a healthy and safe way,
Right.
because that's it has to have the right approach.
In this Planned Parenthood article, they had a list of a ton of different like initiatives and groups and stuff. And I clicked on a few of them, and one of them that stuck out to me was the Future of Sex Education Initiative. And this was launched in collaboration with a few other groups. And if you go to their website, like it shows a lot of the work that they've done. The thing that I liked the most about them as I was checking out their website was that instead of referring to it as like sex ed for kids, they usually refer to it as child sex abuse prevention programs.
Oh,
And I think
yeah.
that's just like that really sums up well exactly what I think you and I are both thinking
Yeah.
because again, like it's mostly about consent and like that's a huge thing about like preventing
Mhm.
sex abuse as for kids.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was great. They had a lot of really great resources too. I'll link it in the show notes. But their goal is to spread word that sex ed for kids is about body ownership
Mhm.
and children's right to control their bodies. Just
Mhm.
because they're kids does not mean they don't deserve that right.
Exactly.
They also teach that child sex abuse prevention programs should also focus on communication, self protection, and that it impacts so much more than pregnancy and STI prevention, which we've already talked about.
Yeah.
Because it really does. Like you said, like with the domestic violence thing, like that does spiral. And
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons that was listed as to why it's also important.
Yeah.
Their article also described parental involvement, role playing opportunities for practice, and sensitivity to development levels as being key characteristics to effective programs. So, the thing that stuck out to me was the sensitivity to development levels. Because,
Mhm.
like we were saying, like you can teach consent with age appropriate games, for
Yeah.
example, you know?
Or you can literally, like, in if you're watching, like, a little cartoon, there's, like, examples all the time. It's like, "Oh, he didn't want his friend to touch him or to give hi to hold his hand or whatever, so he asked him politely to not." Like,
Right.
like, there's so many opportunities in, like, children's books and children's movies and stuff, like, they're really good at teaching principles like that.
Hmm.
So just, like, really highlighting those.
Yeah, there's probably, not that I'm a parent, there's probably like a ton of books out there that
Mhm.
will show that. Or like there's probably like YouTubers that will like help teach you consent, you
Yeah,
know? And
yeah, like, there's so if you literally Google, like, "How do I teach my two-year-old consent?" I'm sure
yeah,
there's
I'm
videos.
sure it's something that I think is being talked about more and that's really great.
Yeah.
And so there's more and more resources.
Mhm.
So again, overall, sex ed for kids, it's mostly about consent.
Yeah.
And so this made me think too, I was like, was I like ever explicitly taught about consent in school?
No.
No, I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah, I
so.
was thinking about that too, and
Cause
I
like
don't think
we
so.
had like maturation.
I didn't ever do
You didn't do
maturation. No, because I
maturation?
was homeschooled that year.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so yeah, I was in 5th grade. It was honestly, like, kinda traumatic because
That's what I've
they
heard.
separated the boys and the girls. I don't really remember, like, the maturation itself, except they gave us a pad and we had to, like, put, Hershey syrup on it. And they would, like, demonstrate, like, this is probably the color that it's gonna look when you're, like, spotting or when you're, like, ending your period and stuff, like, it was honestly, like,
Weird.
really weird, but then I literally went home and I started my period that day for the first time,
Oh, and you had
and
your
and I
pad.
had that little pad for maturation, and I was like,
Oh.
"This is terrible." So that was kinda funny. But, like,
Oh.
we were never taught, like, if somebody's making you uncomfortable,
Mhm.
like you can set boundaries. Like we were never taught that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we weren't. Like, I had sex ed in high school, like, in health
Yeah, but like
class.
by then like everything.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, I didn't have maturation, but I think you're right. Like, any sex ed, it needs to include consent because it's just like it's sad that there are like people who don't learn this because they don't have parents who want to talk about it, or they don't have like adults in their life that think about talking about it, because you might just not think about it. Like, it might just be
Mhm.
like, oh, that's common sense, like make sure that you want to do it too. But when you're actually in a situation where something's being forced upon you and you literally shut down, and you've never explicitly been told, like, if someone's making you uncomfortable, you say no,
Mhm.
then it's like, "Oh my gosh, what do I do?" But if someone's told you that, you might really cling on to that and be like, "Okay, no, like, I can say no. I'm gonna say no, I'm gonna stop this."
Right.
So, I think it does need to be taught in schools, 'cause I don't if it was, like, I remember a lot of other details about sex ed in high school, but I do not remember anything about that. So if they did talk about it, then they didn't talk about it enough.
No. Like I think it's something that needs to be implemented into like each year starting in kindergarten.
Mhm.
And again, start with the basics, but like
Mhm.
work up from there.
Yeah.
Like by the time they're in high school, like that's where you'd probably focus on like again, more consent, but like pregnancy prevention, STI prevention,
Yeah.
like safe sex, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But like you start with the basics
Yeah.
and you lay that foundation.
Yeah, I love that you focused on that. Like, I just love that analogy. Like, you're not gonna teach a kindergarten calculus.
Right, cuz it's like somebody mentions this topic and people
Mhm.
go crazy.
Yeah.
Like, why are we going to teach kids about sex? It's like, you're not.
You're not
Like,
gonna teach kids about sex. You're gonna teach them
no.
about consent. You're gonna teach them about, like, their bodies and, like, being comfortable in their own skin and
Hmm.
safety. Like, it's really important. So I'm glad you used that analogy. I think that's really easy to follow and understand, and I think it's a great way to teach why it's important.
I do too. And again, credits to the user on TikTok. I'll put her her username in the show notes cuz she explained it really well and like she did have personal experience with it and so it kind of like hit different for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Um but yeah, let us know what you guys think because we love to hear like your guys' thoughts and opinions, especially on a topic that we do that's like this isn't really controversial, but like something that like could be deemed controversial. So like DM
Yeah.
us, let us know what you think. If you think that it's important, if you experienced sex ed growing up in a way that like really stuck with you, if you learned
Mhm.
about consent. So
Yeah.
yeah, slide into our DMs.
Yeah, slide in to our DMs, and as always, go ahead and check out our Instagram. We are actually really active on TikTok now, so
Mhm.
it's our username everywhere is at Real Talk About Feminism Pod. So
Mhm.
check us out on TikTok, on Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe to the email newsletter so that you don't miss any updates. We send those out once a week, and you can fill out the contact form in our bio, and or not in her bio, in the show notes, and just fill out your email there and you'll get one email per week.
Yes, thank you guys so much for listening and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.